And we are live. Welcome, everyone. It is the aftermath of the Miami Dolphins' latest uh, failure, stumbling. Dolphins lose a 45-21 decision against the Cincinnati Bengals at Hard Rock Stadium. Hey, but they look cool. They had the throwback uniforms. I know for some fans, that's all that matters. And the end zones look cool, and the field look cool, and all the graphics they use during the week look cool. Same old Dolphins. To discuss, dissect not only the game, but also more importantly, the big picture, not only as it involves Tua Tagovailoa, Stephen Ross, Mike McDaniel, the big Joe Burrow rumor, trade, whatever. So I'm joined by Dante Collinelli, the deputy editor of Miami Dolphins on SI, to sift through all the shenanigans. Dante, any general reaction to this game?
I mean, I think same old Dolphins sums it up, right? At least same old Dolphins for this regime. You play a competitive first half, and then you come out in the third quarter and you just get taken to the woodshed. Bengals just beat the crap out of you. A bunch of turnovers. I think Mike McDaniel talked a lot about this in his post-game presser. They let the game spiral after the bad OPI call on Theo Weiss, and they let it get away from them. And look, I'm not defending that call. I thought that was a bad call, and I almost never complain about the refs. That was a bad call, but the refs are bad in pretty much every game across the league every week. They make mistakes. You have to be able to handle adversity in the NFL. And Mike McDaniel's Miami Dolphins couldn't do it today. They just spiraled out of control. It was just turnovers and really, really bad defense, and they got blown out in the third quarter. This was a blowout. It was 17-14 at the half, and this game ended in a blowout. Joe Flacco was playing in the fourth quarter. Bengals had 4 wins coming in this game. You got blown out in your own place by that team. Brutal.
And here's a quick stat that has nothing to do with the game itself, but I find it interesting. This was the third meeting between the Bengals and the Dolphins since Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa were among the first 5 picks of the 2020 NFL draft. In none of those games have the two quarterbacks played a full game against each other. In 2020, Bengals played in Miami in December. Burrow was out for the year with a knee injury. It was Brandon Allen or Cal Allen, one of the two, who was quarterbacking for the Bengals. In 2022, the Thursday night game in Cincinnati, of course, we had the Tua nasty concussion. And then today, Tua's on the bench. Joe Burrow starts and then gets lifted. And
here's your fun fact real quick. I was at the 2020 game. I was there in the stands.
19-7. That was a game where Tua showed right then and there for all the absolute BS garbage of some of his fans in 2022. See, we told you Tua could throw a deep pass. That question was answered, and I said this many times. That question was answered in that game against the Bengals. He threw a perfect pass, about 55, 60 yards in the air to Jakeem Grant. That should have been a 90-yard touchdown. Grant dropped it.
Yeah.
So all Tua fans and their feelings, nobody was saying he couldn't throw a deep pass. And it's not just throwing one, it's about consistency. We digress. Tua didn't have anything to do with this game, other than the fact that his absence showed that the Dolphins' issues in 2025 are not strictly Tua related. And nor did I ever said that, nor Dante ever said that. The problem is we said he was part of the problem and necessarily part of the solution. You mentioned this is a team where adversity hits, they fold bad. And yes, it was a brutal OPI call, but that didn't cause a fumble by Greg Dulcich on the next snap. And then it didn't cause the pick where Theo Weiss, and I had some people ask me about Theo Weiss, why isn't he up before? I told him I didn't like the way the guy can't get separation. And to me, it was glaring when I went to the joint practices. One time I was watching the offense in Detroit in one-on-one matchups. It's Dolphin receivers against Lions DBs, and Theo Weiss could not separate. And watch the replay of that interception, and you will see Theo Weiss round out his route instead of cutting it sharply to where he would have shielded the defensive back more than he did. And that one was borderline DPI. The contact was awfully close to when the ball got there. The bottom, I have no idea why I'm getting bubbles over here. Oh, is that
I think I thought you were giving a thumbs up for Theo Weiss' lack of separation.
No, and I like Theo Weiss. He's got a big body and he can catch the ball. Yeah. But again, the route running not there and the creates separation. But again, the bottom line here is the Dolphins do not have adversity when it starts going poorly. And in those third quarters, it was bad against Pittsburgh last Monday night, bad again today.
Yeah, I mean, they just let it spiral out of control. And we can sit here and talk about the turnovers on offense. I think the one that you're referring to will be I'm very interested to see what the all 22 looks on that, because I thought that was equally a good play by the Bengals corner, ultimately. So I'll be interested to see what the route looks like there. But I think defensively too, like, look, I understand getting short fields is not great, right? Like, that's the offense put them in a position to fail. I understand that, but okay, you give up one touchdown and a field goal, right? You give up 10 points on those possessions. Sure, whatever. Bengals scored, what was it, 35 unanswered points in this game? A bunch of them came in that third quarter. It was 21-0 in the third quarter. Like, no one gets away with it in this sense. I mean, it was just a total and utter collapse. They forgot how to tackle, had coverage bust in the red zone. I mean, Chase Brown's wide open in the corner of the end zone. You have Jordan Brooks yelling at three different people, "Hey, bump, bump, bump!" Right? When they yell bump, that means everyone moves out, takes the next guy, and everyone's just looking at Jordan Brooks, and Chase Brown's in the end zone with a touchdown. Like, it's not like the offense. Yeah, the offense was terrible in the third quarter. They were not good, and they got a lot of garbage time stats in those two drives in the fourth quarter again. But defensively, I mean, you didn't have the guys for this game. That's what it came down to for me. And I wrote that in the recap that you can read on the website right now for free. And I don't know if you feel the same way. Like, yeah, they had schematic busts in this game, but it was just like, dude, like, they just don't have the dudes to run with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Brown, and Joe Burrow for 4 quarters. They just don't have them. This defense just doesn't have that gusto of player.
No, and I will tell you, Rasul Douglas, again, to me, he is impressing the hell out of me, because he early on, especially in a couple of really nice plays. Jack Jones, and I love the tenacity, I love his toughness, good tackle and all that. And it's not even that I would necessarily rag on him for this. Good luck, have fun covering T. Higgins. T. Higgins is a dude, and I tweeted this during the game. There's any conversation for as the best number 2 wide receiver in the NFL, to me, has to start and end with T. Higgins. That guy is a dude. That long catch down the left sideline.
Yeah, Jack had no shot. He had no shot.
No, but then he did the one thing that I despise, and I know it's not as easy as it sounds, but he never turned to see the ball, and I don't even know if it would have made a difference, because that was a dime by Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
But this is where, during the winning streak, we were looking at the defense. This is a good defense, is getting takeaways and all that. And then some of us, and I think you as well, were like, look who they're playing, though.
Yeah.
They're not, and the Bengals offense is really, really, really good. Now, the flip side is the Bengals defense is really, really bad. And the Dolphins didn't make it look like a really, really bad defense, other than the 48 touchdown run by Devon Achane. Outside of that, it's pretty pedestrian offensively for the Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would like to see them come out with more than, I would call it 14 real points in this game. The Bengals were completely content to let the Dolphins take that 97-yard drive down the field at the end of the game. That was more garbage time to me. I think, and again, it came down to the turnovers, right? You have the Greg Dulcich fumble. I think maybe if he catches that, you go for it on 4th down. I think he was probably 4 to 5-ish yards short of picking it up. I think you go for it on 4th down. Who knows? Quinn Ewers' first interception, I think, there are multiple people at fault there. Doesn't bounce your way. Okay, sure. Ewers' second interception, not a good throw. I mean, just throwing up a total YOLO ball to Jalen Waddle, and that's just not Jalen Waddle's game. He's not going to win those. You got to throw him open if you're going to throw that ball. So, and I think, the running game, I wasn't quite there today in the way that you probably wanted it to be either. I think Mike McDaniels asked about this after the game too, and he kind of mentioned that they were getting beat up a bit in the trenches. And I thought that was true too, even outside of that 48-yard run from Devon Achane. I think if you take that away from what the running game put up today, I mean, not a good day on the ground. Yards per carry, yards before contact, any of that. So offensively, I mean, I think you got pushed around a bit in the trenches by this Bengals team, which isn't great. And then, their back 7 just made a couple plays on the ball. I mean, Ewers probably should have thrown a 3rd interception too. Yes. I think it was Barrett Carter who dropped the 3rd one in the middle of the field. So the Bengals defense did not look like the worst unit in the sport in this game. And I think the Dolphins offense made their job easier at times. And that is just not where you want to be when you have an offensive minded head coach and a running game that was really humming for 6 weeks.
Yeah, and this is where I may take some flack for this, but I'm going to do it anyway. There's a lot of web folks, podcasters and all that, who will not stop highlighting Aaron Brewer or Savaiinaea or guys like that making blocks down the field on plays that work well. And that's all great. And I think Aaron Burrow has had a good year, and his tires are getting pumped all over the place. And I get it. Except if we're going to talk about that, we're going to talk about the absolute lack of push in 3rd and 1 situations, or even the 4th and 1 on the quarterback sneak by Quinn Ewers, where it also didn't help that he slipped on the logo. But if we mention, again, the offensive line, which to me has been better than I think a lot of people would have expected, the push is not there in 3rd and short situations, which is not necessarily all that shocking, because the Dolphins' running game is about misdirection, moving laterally, getting guys out of position, getting the angles on them for the blocks. It's not about physically pushing guys back. That becomes an issue in short yardage. It was not an issue earlier in the season, but the last, 6 games or so, they're back to really sucking on 3rd and 1. And the one that before, forget the 4th and 1 with Ewers, they had one with Ollie Gordon where he had no shot against somebody in his grill the second he gets the handoff. And that's kind of a price you pay for that style of offense, where, again, it's all about mobility, agility, and your offensive lineman as opposed to bulk and power.
Yeah, I think what worries me is that it looks like the 3rd and short, 4th and short play calling is starting to get into McDaniel's head again, where we're outthinking ourselves a little bit, right? We go back to fullback dive. That was something that we tried early this season, if I'm not mistaken, that didn't really work the way that you wanted it to. The missed block there actually came courtesy of Patrick Paul, not the interior of the line, which was not great to see. And then the 3rd and 3rd and 2 toss play towards the end of the half. Patrick Paul had a miscommunication with Malik Washington there. They both took the same blocker and left a linebacker unblocked, who came in and blew up the play on Achane. So, yeah, I think bad play calls there. I don't like fullback dive in almost any scenario. I don't care who's back there at fullback. And I don't like toss on 3rd and 2 either, especially from the shotgun. I don't know why we're running 6 yards in the wrong direction to pick up 2 yards. So look, I'm not trying to defend the offensive line per se here. I'm just saying that I think in short yardage situations, I think you've just reached a point where McDaniel doesn't know what to call. He doesn't have a consistent button that he can push. I think we've seen this for 4 years, right? I think it's a combination of poor player execution and poor play calling. I think it's both. And when you have those two things, it doesn't matter if you're playing the 32nd best defense in the NFL, they're going to beat you if you don't execute and you're calling bad plays. And then the Dolphins finally have a quarterback who they can QB sneak with. And what happens on the first one that they attempt? He slips. And it's just like it's a bit, it almost felt like a Murphy's Law game in the 3rd and 4th and short stuff for the Dolphins today. So really tough scene. I think, again, that's, if we want to pivot to another conversation, I think that's one of the reasons that you have to question what they're doing in head coach past this season, because it's 4 years of this stuff. This is not a new issue. Dolphins have been a bad short yardage team for 4 years.
But again, I might push back here when you say they have a sneak quarterback with Quinn Ewers. I mean, he's got he's tall. He's not huge.
Yeah, but they're willing to call it. They wouldn't even call it with Tua. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
He's not going to push a pile.
No, he's not. But they're willing to try.
But then why are you not pushing, having guys push him in the back? I mean,
that's a great question.
I don't understand, because the Dolphins don't have a money play on 3rd down like some teams, as long as they don't have what the Bears ran last night when they snapped a shotgun snap between the legs of the tight end who had lined up behind that one. Anyway, I digress, because the Bears are doing very well. But it would be nice to have, yes, I'm going to go there. Buffalo has Josh Allen because he's huge. Even the Chargers use Justin Herbert on sneaks because he's 6'6". The Eagles do the tush push because, first of all, Jalen Hurts is very powerful in the lower body, and they also push him to make it easier. Dolphins don't have that kind of signature play, and they don't have the offensive line to get the push regularly. Anyway, let's move on from that. Quinn Ewers, to me, the biggest thing I wanted to see in this game was that he was not overwhelmed by the moment, and he didn't look overwhelmed by the moment. He throws a very smooth ball, and when it's on target, it looks beautiful. It's a very pretty throw. There's not a ton of zip on the ball. And that came into play on the pick to Waddle, where that thing was in the air a little bit too long and Waddle was not open. And as you mentioned, that's not where Waddle lives, winning 50-50 balls. It worked with Darren Waller on the first third down of the game. That's not going to work with John Waddle. That was a flat-out bad throw. The other one, I can excuse it. To me, I think it was just not a very good route. But overall, I mean, I thought he was fine. There was nothing spectacular. It left me looking, let's give him let's get another start here also. And Mike McDaniel said after the game that he's inclined, kind of more like what I just said, that he saw enough to think that at this moment, before watching the film, he's inclined to think that he'll go with him as a starter again against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next Sunday. Your overall thoughts on Ewers' performance?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the film looks like, but I'm kind of with you off the initial impression. Like it was fine. I think my number one thing was like, hey, is this player an NFL quarterback? Right? Like that was the box I was hoping that Ewers would check in this game because, as a 7th round pick, I mean, those guys don't always stick on rosters very long. They get turned over very quickly. So, and I did not like Ewers' tape out of Texas. And so I wanted to make sure that he was an NFL quarterback. And I think he can be. I do think it'll be interesting how much it'll be different against the Buccaneers team that has to win next week and has a better defense, at least with the players that are on the depth chart. They're not playing particularly well at the moment, but they have a lot more firepower than the Bengals do on defense. So that'll be interesting, but that's getting ahead of ourselves. I thought Quinn was fine today. He ran what they asked him to run. He made some mistakes. The Darren Waller ball in the first drive of the game was a horrible decision. Both of his first 2 reads were wide open at the sticks, and he didn't throw the football for some reason, and Waller bailed him out. But if that's your worst play of the day, one of your worst plays of the day is a 7th round pick, I'm fine with that. And I think you saw some of the positives that McDaniel was talking about during the week with conviction, right? Like Quinn, if he sees it, he's just ripping it. And that is going to come with the Jalen Waddle interception, and it's going to come with some of the inbreakers that they hit to Jalen Waddle as well. You're kind of going to get both sides of the coin. To me, with Quinn, he looks like a quarterback that I think can be a viable backup for you. I don't think anything that he showed today makes me think that he's a long-term NFL starter or even a player that I'm particularly interested in letting compete for the starting job next season, depending on what the QB room looks like. But I think he's an NFL quarterback. I think if he's your QB2 or QB3, that's fine for now. I think it's worth giving him the next 2 games as well, like you said, and we'll see where it goes. But very, very fine debut for Quinn Ewers. I wasn't impressed, wasn't disappointed, just kind of sure. It was all right.
Yeah, and if you check Miami Dolphins on SI.com, I had written a story Friday, I think it was, or Thursday. All content is free there. Please check it out. About all the starting debuts of Dolphin rookies at quarterback. And Ewers, in terms of yardage, if my memory serves, that might be the second highest yardage total, even though, yes, a lot of it was garbage time. But to me, for example, it was a lot better than Skylar Thompson's first start. The game against the Jets. First start actually was Minnesota. The week after Teddy Bridgewater was pulled immediately from the Jets game. He played the first quarter and a half. I didn't really count that. The first long game he played actually was a Jets game, and what I saw from Quinn Ewers was better than that, or Tyler Huntley, even though he wasn't a Dolphins rookie draft pick. But it was better than what we've seen among Dolphin backup quarterbacks, probably than anything other than Teddy Bridgewater. So there's that. I left this game thinking he could become a decent number 2. I don't know. And who's to say that he doesn't develop more than potentially, maybe down the line, maybe starter material, but probably not high-end starter material. I don't see the ceiling being very high, but I'm willing certainly to give him some time. But it wasn't a disaster. And it's kind of sort of what I was expecting, and wasn't the reason the Dolphins won, wasn't the reason the Dolphins lost. We have a lot of comments in the chat. We're going to get to them. Let's tackle a couple of the other topics. Mike McDaniel's job security. If you watch the national reporters, Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter, joined the long list. I think Jonathan Jones from CBS Sports on Friday, and there's a consensus that the strong feeling is that Mike McDaniel will be back in 2026. This was before the game. I tweeted during the game, towards the end of the game, that's just the kind of loss that makes coaches lose their job because it was bad. Mike McDaniel was asked the very last question of his media session after the game. Has he been told by Stephen Ross that he'll be back next season? And if you know Mike McDaniel, this should have been the answer you would expect. Focusing on Tampa Bay, that's where my energies need to be. Never answered the question. I am still of the belief that Mike McDaniel will be back as head coach in 2026, not just because of the national reporting. That's been my thoughts. I know Stephen Ross, this with Mike McDaniel. Whether that's the right move or not, we'll discuss that at some other point. Right now, I would be inclined to say no. Why? But again, I don't want to make this discussion about that. Let's address the Adam Schefter report that the Dolphins offered not 3, as had been reported before, but 4 first-round pick to the Cincinnati Bengals before or at the time of the 2020 NFL draft for the first overall pick for the chance to select Joe Burrow. The Bengals were like, la, 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 we're not trading him. And all sorts of questions come into play. For example, who leaked it? Because it's not Adam Schefter didn't just decide, let me make that up. Somebody told him that. Where does it come from? If you look at the Dolphins, why would the Dolphins tell them that when it's already been reported that they've offered him 3? Why would they want to double down and say, no, we offered him 4? What would that accomplish? To say, look, we knew Tua wasn't the right answer, so we really tried to get Burrow, but we were stuck with Tua? No. Could be coming from the Bengals, maybe, because Joe Burrow's made all those comments about, like, I will need to be happy when I play football. And there's some sort of feeling that maybe he wouldn't mind getting traded. And maybe if they put that out right now, it suggests, hey, we turned down 4 first-round picks now. Don't think you're getting a bargain for him if we trade him. Who knows? And then the second part of the equation, I address all this in the story. Second part of the equation is 4 first-round picks, and you say no, really? When mind you, if the report is legit, that means the Bengals could have had 4 first-round picks, used one of those on either Tua or Justin Herbert, QB of their preference with the number 5 pick, and then had 3 extra first-round picks, and they said no. Kind of a little hard to believe, no?
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to this, right? I think to your point of who leaked it, right? And obviously, I have no sources, purely speculation on my part. The only 2 Dolphins people, things, entities, if you want to call them, that I could think here is one, this is Chris Greer's camp. He's trying to lobby for a new job. Hey, I tried to trade for Joe Burrow. Don't associate me with Tua, which, bold strategy, but that's where we're at. And then the other one would be the people who are left in the building after Chris Greer got fired, trying to pitch themselves as smart football people. That's the only thing I can come up with. I don't know that either of those things are particularly likely, but that's the only Dolphins spin on this that I can come up with. Yeah. I think it's more likely that this was either a report that maybe Adam had for a couple weeks and he was waiting for this game to release, or it was something that came from the Bengals side. I have no idea. Ultimately, though, it doesn't matter because it didn't happen. And I think to your point of should the Bengals have taken the deal, it's very easy to sit and go, yeah, obviously take 4 first-round picks, right? And you just take Tua or Herbert. Looking at it in the moment in 2020, like I think people kind of do a lot of revisionist history on what the perception of Justin Herbert was coming out of Oregon. He was very clearly, to most, the 3rd best quarterback in that class, and Tua was coming off the hip injury. And so to me, I think the Bengals just sat there and they were like, why are we gambling? We're just going to take Joe Burrow, who's one of the better quarterback prospects to come out in recent memory, even at that time. Not quite like I think your example in the story was Andrew Luck. I don't think he was quite the Andrew Luck tier quarterback, but he was very good. And I think the Bengals probably didn't like Justin Herbert. Like a lot of people didn't like Justin Herbert coming out of Oregon, and Tua was coming off the injury. So I think the prospect of, hey, we're going to gamble on this when we just won the big tank battle just was not appealing to them. And ultimately, I think they made the right decision. So, except
this is the part where I would point out that Burrow's been in the league. This is his 6th season. The Bengals have made the playoffs twice in his 6 seasons. They did reach the Super Bowl. They did reach the AFC Championship game the following year, but 2 playoffs in 6 years is not, and that's not great. And it's not all Burrow's fault because he's a hell of a quarterback.
I was about to say Joe Burrow is good. To me, that's the bar. The bar is Joe Burrow good? The answer is yes. Is Joe Burrow a franchise quarterback? Is he one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the sport? Yes and yes. They made the right decision, in my opinion. But
okay, fair enough. Now that we mentioned it, I'm going to do this again for the 18th millionth time. If you follow me on Twitter, I did it today. I'm going to do it again to set the record straight because I hate the narrative that's out there because it's false information. By the way, today's game was the first time since 2019, week 16, that the Dolphins played a game with no playoff implications for either side. That game in 2019 was against the Bengals. What was at stake was a number 1 overall pick, but it's not like the Dolphins get the number 1 pick if they lose that game to Cincinnati. If you remember, they won the game 38-35 in overtime after the Bengals scored 3 touchdowns in the last 6 minutes to eliminate a 35-13 deficit. And then the Dolphins won in overtime. And the reason is the Dolphins were 3-11 at the time when they came into that game. The Bengals were 1-13. There were 2 teams in the NFC, the New York Giants, and I forget the other one, might have been Washington. Don't hold me to it. That were 3-11. And the strength of schedule, which is the number 1 tiebreaker for draft position, had the Dolphins in the worst shape of any of those teams. So even had the Dolphins won that game, lost that game, lost the following against New England, the 3-win teams all lost out. So you'd have a 4-way tie, which was the best the Dolphins could have done at 3-13. The Dolphins still, I didn't check and it's not mathematical, but I'm like 99% sure would not have had the number 1 overall pick because their strength of schedule was better than the other teams, which means they sucked more, which means they would go lower. No, which means they sucked less, which means they would go lower in the draft order. So that idea that the Dolphins blew the number 1 pick by beating the Bengals in that week 16, 2019 game is flat out inaccurate. It's wrong. So, okay. What else do we need to discuss? Tua Tagovailoa, his status. Like the reporting now is that more than likely the Dolphins are going to look to move on from him, that the benching is basically one of those deals of the bridge has been burned. To quote a famous movie, that's one doodle that can't be undid. If you know the reference, good for you. The issue, obviously, I think, is that Ian Rappaport said the Dolphins' preference would be to be able to trade him. Good luck with that. Because again, the salary cap, we don't need to go into all of this. The salary cap implications are very painful. Even for a team acquiring him would require the Dolphins to eat up some of his salary in a trade, probably throw in better draft picks for a team to do that. Not necessarily saying it. I think the more likely scenario, if the Dolphins do indeed want to move on from Tua, would be released probably post June 1, make it 67 next year, 32 the following year. And there was another national report suggesting the Dolphins would have to release Tyreek Hill to save cap space to be able to absorb the additional cap space from releasing Tua. Tyreek Hill was never coming back at his cap number regardless. So one has nothing to do with the other. Even if the Dolphins do keep Tua, they're not keeping Tyreek at that cap number, which is $51 million. Not happening. So needed to set the record straight on all of those things. Anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I think when we did the air quotes emergency podcast when Tua got benched earlier in the week, I'd kind of said that my preference would be to release Tua Tagovailoa with a post June 1 designation. My opinion on that hasn't changed. It's for all the same reasons, and I outlined these on Twitter this week as I had people pushing back, and the most common thing I've heard is, well, you're already paying him. Why don't you just let him sit on the roster and be the backup quarterback? And I understand where those people are coming from, and if that's what ends up happening, I would get it, but my pushback to that would be, one, and I think this gets swept under the rug a lot, why in the world would Tua be okay with that arrangement? I think people underestimate the leverage that players have and have developed over the years in these scenarios. And then two, if you're the Dolphins, to me, if you know that Tua isn't the guy, you have no interest in him being your long-term option at quarterback, why are you wasting development time, reps, and a roster spot on that player? This is not a backup safety. It's a backup quarterback. You only get a couple of those guys, and you need as much development time with those players as possible. The Dolphins have not had a bona fide, long-term, elite franchise quarterback in like 25 years. I have no interest in using a roster spot on a player who I know is not going to be that for me. It's as simple as that. I would rather let Quinn Ewers get those reps, hypothetically. Do I think Quinn Ewers is better than Tua Tagovailoa? No, probably not, but that's not really the point, right? Like, the point is I need to take as many swings as humanly possible at finding a franchise quarterback. And if I keep Tua on the roster, I am getting one less swing at a franchise quarterback, even if that swing is a low percentage fourth round quarterback, or it's a random, the Colts cut Anthony Richardson and the Dolphins sign him for a super, cheap contract. I'd rather see that player than I would Tua Tagovailoa if the Dolphins already know that he's not their guy. So that's my argument for releasing Tua. And I think it's the right call. I think ultimately, I think he'd be a fine teammate about it generally, but I think it would be a distraction. It would be a non, you don't need to do it. Why? Just move on. Rip the Band-Aid off. It's time. You gave it a good try, 6 years. It didn't work out.
No, I agree. And again, what we saw on Sunday shows you that the Dolphins' issues are not limited to Tua. But again, he's not part of the solution. And at some point, the idea is get his cap money off the books as soon as possible. And maybe the best way to do it is do it right now. Okay, it's chat time. Let's chat, shall we? Okay. Sorry. I can't help being a dork sometimes. Sorry. Okay. Hold on. I know. There's a way to do this easier next. Okay, here we go. Whoa, what up? Mall Security with the $10 donation. Thank you very much, sir. Very kind of you. Ended badly, but Ewers did remind me of all the things Tua can't do anymore. Bullet passes, diving forward on the QB run, mobility, hoping our 2026 starting QB is not currently on the roster.
I agree with everything other than bullet passes. I did not see a single bullet today, but I agree with, I think Ewers diving forward was nice, and I thought he hit some of the throws that had gone away from the offense when Tua was the quarterback. And I also hope that the 2026 starting quarterback is not currently on the roster. So Good comment here. Good job. We'd like to see it.
I agree. No, and having said that, he throws a very pretty pass. I will say that.
Yeah, no, he had some good throws in this game for sure. I just, velocity wise, I don't know that I'd classify them as bullets, but that's okay.
I agree. Polterghost 6268. Thank you very much for the donation, sir or ma'am. Hey, y'all, thanks for the content. Does Waddle have questions to answer these last few games? Does he, or do we not already know what Waddle is as a wide receiver?
He doesn't have any questions for me.
Yeah, I mean, very, very fast receiver, can get you the big play. Not necessarily great in 50-50 situations. Will drop the occasional pass. I think we all know who he is personally.
Yep. No, above average wide receiver, has some limitations. That's it.
I'd still call him a high-end number 2, but he's not like in T. Higgins' class as a number 2 wide receiver, and there's no shame in that because T. Higgins is probably the best in the league. And to me, maybe a top 5 number 2, but I don't think he's number 1 material. Winged Ninja 89, thank you very much for the donation. Much appreciated. One of the biggest reasons Mike cannot return isn't the operational mistakes. It's the leadership. Post halftime, after the turnovers, players seem to check out. Difficult to argue that point the way things played out. There seems to be a lack of resolve whenever adversity hits, but I don't know how much of that is talent related, how much of that is a leadership issue.
It's weird too, because they have, if you look at like how they've responded to adversity over the course of the last 2 seasons, they've put together some nice win streaks when they could have, turned it in and gone 2-14 or whatever it is. Right. So it's kind of strange to be like, yeah, this team doesn't respond well to adversity, which is something I said at the top of the show, but like in these individual games, they do not, that they let one thing just completely knock them off. And,
right.
I think Mike deserves credit for navigating 2 difficult seasons and keeping the team, I'll say competitive in air quotes, but like ultimately they were not very competitive for most of last week's game, and they were not very competitive for most of, well, the second half of this week's game, right? And it's just, it's not good enough. And that does fall to Mike. Whatever I think of his ability to keep the locker room together over the course of a season, he is not doing a good enough job at in-game management.
Yep. No, thank you, Noel. Much appreciated. Is it time to shut down a few players, HN, Waddle, Brooks, etc.? Here's the thing, though. The guys are competitors. They want to play. Jordan Brooks was playing with some injuries. You saw the big wrapper on his elbow. Had a really rough game in coverage, and I'm not even talking about the touchdown where Chase Brown was completely wide open. Had a couple of other plays. He took all, first of all, very, very slow reacting to Chase Brown cutting outside on his first touchdown reception of the third quarter, then took a bad angle to allow Brown to get inside of him. Anyway, I digress. These guys are competitors. They want to play. There's also statistical issues at play. There's also contract stuff at play. Jordan Brooks leads the NFL in tackles. You don't think he wants to finish the season as the league leader. Devon Achane going to ask the Dolphins for a contract extension. You don't think you want to make his numbers as good as possible. To me, it's always, if a player is dealing with some kind of injury, you leave the decision up to him. Generally speaking, guys are going to want to play. Like I said, I don't think Minkah Fitzpatrick's playing another down this season because he's got a calf injury. But in terms of those players, I don't think you're going to see, an overall shutting down of players. I'd really be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these guys are fighting for a lot of things, like their next contracts. They're standing with, if there's a new regime coming in, you have players like Jordan Brooks and Aaron Brewer due for extensions. If they're going to stay around long term. Devon Achane's trying to get paid. And then, of course, you also have the fact that Mike McDaniel's probably, even though the national reporters seem pretty convinced he's coming back, I think he would probably like to win a couple games here down the stretch to further prove his point, if you will. And so I don't really see a scenario in which these players sit as long as they are healthy. If they start popping up on the injury report and they miss practice and stuff like that, maybe. But I think if they're healthy, they're going to play. There's a lot of proving that needs to be done, whether McDaniel's back or not, for the players and the coaches and everyone. And so I think that they'll treat these 2 games as such.
And those 2 games, for those who may have forgotten, Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Hard Rock Stadium next Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and at the New England Patriots at Gillette Stadium on the weekend of January 4th or 5th. Those games right now, all 16 games on the NFL schedule for that weekend are scheduled as TBD. The NFL is going to pull out 2 of those games for Saturday. They're going to pull out one for the Sunday night season finale of the entire league. The game might be meaningful for New England, but generally speaking, the league requires both teams to have something at stake for the game to be put in prime time. So I'm going to guess it's going to wind up being a 1:00 game, particularly if the Patriots have already clinched the AFC East, which they can do with a win against the Jets on next Sunday. Birthday Salami with the donation. Thank you very much, sir. Miami defense, Legion of Room.
It's pretty good.
Because they allowed a lot of room, and it's a playoff Legion of Doom. Well done, partner. Garp Gump, how are you, sir? It's not 1990, is it, Garp? Brett, not 1990. Sorry. Freaked about the letdown after the bad calls. There was one. I don't know what other bad calls. If you're going to say the DPI that could have been called, that was bang play right there. I can't criticize. The OPI was a really bad call.
What's so frustrating about the OPI call too is that that is such an undercalled penalty. I'm actually in favor of calling more OPIs, but to call OPI on that, of all the OPI that are committed, T. Higgins pushed off of Jack Jones for his touchdown. You could have called that OPI.
Yeah.
It was, there are so many opportunities to call OPI across a game. There's probably 10 where you could call OPI, and they don't, because they want there to be offense and whatever. And for that one to be the one you call OPI on is just it's absurd. It's ridiculous. And again, I'm generally in favor of OPI calls because I think it's a drastically undercalled penalty, but man,
that's
a tough one.
There are teams who make a living off rub routes. We all know what rub routes are. That's basically when you pick the defender crossing around, and basically that's OPI. But if you do it subtly enough, they'll let it go. In that case, I mean, the sad truth is he was trying to get out of the way of the guy.
That's the thing, man. If he ran into him and he like decleated the other guy, like, all right, fine. Right. You know what I mean? Like that happens on mesh. I still think that's a questionable call, but like whatever. But like he barely even hit him that hard. Like, come on. Tough one.
James Kodoridis. I think I pronounced it correctly. I hope so. If I didn't, please let me know. Thank you for the donation. I miss Fiedler to Gadsden, Chambers, and McKnight. Dante, your challenge right now. Give me one first name among those four guys.
Jay Fiedler.
It's Fiedler. See, so you gave me the right first name and you messed up his last name. All right, you should know Gadsden. You should know Gadsden because that's his son plays in the NFL right now. That's Arande Gadsden, Chris Chambers, right. James McKnight.
Chris Chambers, yeah. I have a Chris Chambers jersey somewhere from when I was a kid. Yeah. I would not have gotten the last one though. What is McKnight's first name?
James McKnight.
James McKnight.
Claim to fame. James McKnight had an 80-yard touchdown in a Sunday game against Washington when they were wearing orange jerseys. That was in 2003.
Yeah, I should have remembered that from when I was 3 years old. That's my bad. That's on me. Bad Dante.
Sorry. Oh, and that's when in that game the Dolphins trailed 23-10. Fiedler had been dealing with an injury, wasn't starting, came off the bench, rallied the Dolphins for 2 fourth quarter touchdowns. They won 24-23. So that's your history lesson. Gump again, thank you very much, sir. I think we will be drafting an edge, which is okay. They do need an edge.
Yeah. I have begun draft work in the past about 3 weeks. I almost have 50 scouting reports written. I've over-indexed on edge because I think that that's going to be a big position for the Dolphins because I don't think Bradley Chubb will be back next year. So you're looking at a room that includes Chop Robinson, Cameron Good, I think is under contract next year off the top of my head. And then that's pretty much it. So yeah, you're going to need like probably 3 new guys in that room. Maybe one of them's a first round pick. Yeah.
And this also would be nice also if, I want to rag on the dude, but if Chop was a little bit more noticeable.
He has not played well this year. He has not. It's not been, and his snap count was in fluctuation, and you know he wasn't always put in the best position. But yeah, I'm with you. Generally speaking, has just really had not had the second year jump that you were expecting, right? Like I don't know that any of us expected him to be like a great run defender, but we certainly expected him to be a more impactful pass rusher, and it just hasn't been there this year.
Yep, very disappointing. Gump again, thank you very much, sir. Dante, slow your roll regarding the Ewers projection.
What was my projection that we're slowing the roll on?
He'll never be in anything more than potentially a number 2.
That's a great outcome for a 7th round pick. That's a 90th percentile career outcome for a 7th round pick. Those dudes usually get cut.
Although Brock Purdy.
Yeah, well, there's always the exception to the rule, you know, and I'm famously a Brock Purdy hater, so there's that. But look, man, if he turns into Brock Purdy, I'd be happy to be wrong. Nothing would make me happier than to be wrong. I hope he becomes Brock Purdy. That'd be great. That'd be awesome.
That team is just so amazing. I mean, they lost Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Purdy for several weeks. And they have a shot to earn the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Yeah, there's the difference between Kyle Shanahan and his disciples right there. Yeah.
There you go. Very well said. Birthday salami again. Thank you very much, sir. McDaniel has proven throughout his tenure that he can't make in-game adjustments when the game plan is not working or gets taken away. Designs cool plays, but cannot strategize or adjust in real time. Not a head coach. I wish I could find anything to like really disagree with you there, but I can't.
That's I don't know what more you possibly need to see after 4 years, and I don't think McDaniel's like a scrub or anything like that. I think there's things he does well, but I don't know what more evidence you could possibly need after 4 years.
It's like deja vu all over again. It's like how many I don't know. James again, thank you very much, sir. Was hoping for Sage Rosenfeld's magic today. No dice. For those not aware, Sage Rosenfels once upon a time was a backup quarterback. He was once a number 3 quarterback for the Dolphins, and his shining moment was in 2005 in a December game against the Buffalo Bills, where the Dolphins were trailing 23-3 after a safety where the starting quarterback Gus Frerotte was sacked, injured on the play. Rosenfels threw 3 touchdown passes. Chris Chambers, the aforementioned, had a monster day. Dolphins won 24-23 with a last-minute touchdown catch. Garb Gump, one more time. Thank you very much, sir. Much appreciated. McD, methinks, is not the main problem. Discipline is. You might say that falls on McD, but the truth is that he seems to be maturing in this respect. How are we defining discipline? I mean,
I don't know. It's difficult to talk all those things when you're not like in the building, you know. Like I don't really know how the team feels about Mike McDaniel. I really don't. I know what they say in press conferences, but like I would imagine there are a lot of people who like and respect and play hard for Mike McDaniel, and there are other people in the building who are tired of the same issues for 4 years, right? Like I think that's pretty natural. So I don't know. For me, it's hard to blame anyone who isn't the head coach if you're going to point to a lack of discipline. I'm not saying that I think that's a problem necessarily, but like that's got to fall on McDaniel. There's nobody else. Who else does it fall on if it doesn't fall on the head coach?
But see, to me, disciplines involves there's off the field discipline and on the field discipline. Sure. On the field discipline involves not losing your cool and taking stupid penalties for slapping somebody upside the head after the play because he said something nasty to you. That's on the field discipline, or pre-snap penalties all over the place because you can't focus long enough. Then you have off the field discipline, which was what happened. We saw last year a lot with guys being late for meetings. That issue has been solved. I don't see like a ton of on-field discipline issues. But I also don't see a team that's like, wow, they're well coached. A to Z. Sometimes the play calling and the offensive plays are very, very creative and all that, but for the most part, no. And again, as you mentioned, it's been 4 years now with Mike McDaniel, and the results are going backwards for the last 2 years. Now they've already clinched a second consecutive losing season. So I don't know. Josh Smith, thank you very much for the donation. You don't start a rookie quarterback without some security. In fact, I speculated that as well in an analysis piece I wrote this weekend. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I agree. No, I think we talked about that too when Tua got benched on this show. We were like, yeah, you probably don't do this unless you have some guarantee. I will say though, I was skeptical of the Ewers gives us the best chance to win defense, and I'm still somewhat skeptical of that for sure. But like, I understand where McDaniel was coming from, where I want more conviction from my quarterback play. Like I saw Ewers rip a couple balls that I haven't seen Tua rip this year, and I was like, okay, I get it. So there's that, but I ultimately agree with you.
I would say we got probably the same kind of performance from Ewers that we got out of Tua.
Yeah,
weeks, if not maybe a hair better.
Overall, yeah. I think it's the individual plays, the types of things that Ewers was doing is, I think, what Mike was more so looking for. I think to his own fault at times, I think you saw Ewers was willing to just throw the ball up and just trust the concept and not really think too much. And that led to the interception. It almost led to another one that was dropped, but it also led to Darren Waller mossing a corner for a 3rd and long conversion. And it also led to a couple of nice in-breaker throws to Waddle. So like, I'm not saying that Ewers like outperformed Tua overall today, like generally speaking. I understand where Mike was coming from in the way that he wants the quarterback to play the position. But like, ultimately, I mean, Quinn is a limited player, so it still doesn't end up looking that much better, you know?
No, to me, again, it was kind of similar. And Birthday Salami here makes a very good point. Thanks again for another donation. Much appreciated. Ewers playing like that, but not making $54 million.
Yeah. Also very fair.
Yep. Pardon me as I scroll down. Johnny, thank you very much for the donation. How do you value cap space versus draft picks at this point? Because Tua plus a first, if not just a second plus change, definitely gets a deal done.
So I think the implication here is you're doing the Brock Osweiler thing, right? Like you're sending Tua and a pick. I think that's what this comment is getting at.
Yeah, I mean, plus change. What else are you sending? I mean, at some point, it's got to be. Yeah, I mean, and that's going to be negotiation. There'll be a lot of back and forth as to what exactly is going to get a team to agree.
I would not do that personally. I think this team needs all the draft picks that it can get. I just cut him. Just take your medicine. Use your draft picks. They have what? It's like, is it 4 top 100 picks this year?
Yeah,
5?
3 in the third.
Yeah, so like, use them, man. Like, try to rebuild this roster. Get rid of Tua. Restart. Like, I don't think you need to do the Brock Osweiler thing. Just do the Russell Wilson thing. Use your draft picks. Get good players on cheap contracts and go from there.
Okay. Mall Security, thank you very much for the donation. Waller has looked solid when he's been playing. Have you heard how he's feeling or if he's leaning towards coming back next year? He has said something along the lines of not thinking about it until the end of the season. As far as how he's feeling, I can tell you the Dolphins are taking care of him because they're usually giving him usually Wednesday and Thursday of practice, he's limited and it's always listed as rest. He had a little bit of a knee issue from a hit he took in the game against the Steelers that could have been really, really ugly. And props to Dante Samuel Jr. for not completely throwing his body into that knee because that had bad news written all over it. So, no, that's a great question. And when we have the locker cleanout day, the day after the end of the regular season, if Darren Waller is available, trust me, we'll be there and ask him what his thoughts are heading into the next season. However, recent history says not a ton of players are generally available in that session, and it's possible he's going to put another question. He might tell us, I'll see how I feel. But
I would guess his fate's probably tied to Frank Smith. Right, because like Frank's kind of the guy that he came out of retirement to play for. If Frank isn't back in Miami next year, I'd have a hard time thinking that Waller would come back, even if he chooses to play. And then the other side of that coin is, I'm assuming if Waller does decide to play, he probably wants to play for a team that has playoff and Super Bowl chances because he hasn't really had a chance to experience that yet. And so my guess would be he would sign elsewhere.
Are you suggesting the Dolphins won't be in the Super Bowl hunt next year?
I am, yeah, unfortunately.
This is where I point out, our buddy Joe Shad put on Twitter 3 teams that didn't make the playoffs last year that are in the playoffs this year with, well, the implicated was all new head coaches. Chicago with Ben Johnson, and then it was Jacksonville with Liam Cohen, and the third one was, hold on, who was it? I forget.
Carolina did not make the postseason this year.
I know, but they have the same coach. It was like 3 of them that really. New England. Sorry, New England with Mike Vrabel.
Oh yeah, Mike Vrabel. Yeah.
Okay, let's see what else we got here. Ian Mason, thank you very much for the donation. Ian, team quit today. Fire McDaniel to finish off the unholy trinity of Greer, Tua, and McDaniel. Do a real GM search and let the person run it. I'm still not convinced that's what's going to happen. I see what you're saying, and trust. I think a lot of fans would like that. Not convinced it's going to happen. Toby, we need to sign Dulcich. Shouldn't break the bank. Still want to sign him after that fumble he had today? No, I can't. I like Dulcich too. That was a bad fumble, but I like Dulcich.
Yeah, me too. Think you try to bring him back.
Yep, I agree. Guard Gump, thank you again, sir. Minka better than Davis and Jones. Beat cheeks when M's out. Beat cheeks when M's. I don't get
butt cheeks when Minka's out.
Oh, got it. I got it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Ashton Davis had a rough one. That long completion to Jamar Chase into double coverage. First, Ashton Davis, who was responsible for the deep part of the field, completely jumped up and bit on a double move. Number 1, and then number 2, the ball is a little late getting there and it's hanging up, and nobody adjusts to the ball other than Chase.
Yeah. What's hilarious about that play is a good throw is also a touchdown. Just like a bad throw
Yes.
was a big play, and then a good throw was just a touchdown because Chase was wide open, streaking across the field because Ashton Davis was not where he was supposed to be. It's not been a good year for Ashton Davis. I think I've seen enough of Ashton Davis. I do not need to see him on the football field anymore. I know that's not realistic, but like I'm over it. I've been over it for a couple weeks.
You're not a fan. Trust me. I know. Noel, again, thank you very much, Noel. Noel's a good dude. I like Noel. Name 3 reasons to bring McDaniel back in 2026 and 3 seasons not to. Okay, I'll go first. Try to do this as quickly as possible. 3 reasons to bring him back. The team didn't quit on him when they were 2-7. Number 2, he can get very, very creative with the play calling. And number 3, does he deserve or not deserve credit for maximizing Tua, who looked like a horribly limited quarterback in his first 2 seasons with the Dolphins in 2020 and 2021. 3 reasons not to bring him back. It's 2 years in a row the team's basically out of playoff contention at the halfway point of the year. Number 2, as we discussed, there seems to be an issue. First of all, those third quarters are abysmal. And mind you, the notion of halftime adjustments is a bit overblown. If you listen to the Manning cast, he's the one who said we barely ever did anything. It's basically you're there 10 minutes. It's like chillax, some pep talk, and then you go back out. But that having said that, the mojo is completely gone at the end of the first half, and it's happened too often. And then reason number 3, he shouldn't come back. Again, it's the same old. There's I don't know if I can put it tangibly, but there's nothing that we've seen to suggest this is a guy you must bring back.
I'll add one of each just so we can keep the line moving. I think I have personally been underwhelmed by the head coaching candidates that the Dolphins could potentially hire. I don't think this is a particularly strong hiring cycle. I don't think that should make your decision, but for the sake of argument, we'll put it out there. And then another reason that I think you get rid of Mike is just that I don't think, as much as I'm curious to see what he'd look like with a quarterback with more physical juice, I don't think he deserves the benefit of the doubt, given that he was a big reason the quarterback with no juice was with the team and signed for a long-term extension. And frankly, I've not been impressed with his backup quarterback selections over the past 4 years either. So I'm not overly confident in Mike's ability to evaluate a quarterback either.
Well put. Garb Gump, thank you very much, partner. 1990, Elton John released Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Well, can we? We could have felt the Jordan love had the Dolphins gone the Brian Flores route. Brian Flores, who wanted an offensive lineman at number 5.
Twisting the knife.
I'm going to guess Tristan Wirfs was the man of his affection, and then would have taken Jordan Love at 18. Instead, I think that probably would have worked out better than Tua and Austin Jackson, but that's revisionist history. We don't know. But we can feel the love among ourselves, among each other, can we not?
Of course.
By the way, fun trivia factor, since we bring up Elton John, he's the one who sang Can You Feel the Love Tonight? He and I share a birthday. How about that? March 25th. So
Elton John's the second most famous person born on March 25th. How about that?
Yeah, the first one's Paul Michael Glazer of Starsky and Hutch. No, Howard Cosell actually was born.
There we go.
On March 25th. Toby, thank you very much, sir. Ever see Dante and the kid from Big Bang Theory in the same room together?
Is this? Am I supposed to be Leonard?
That's funny.
Is that? I don't watch The Big Bang Theory very often. I think Leonard has these types of glasses, if I'm not mistaken.
By the way, that show is completely awesome.
Dude, Johnny Galecki's a good-looking guy. I'm cool with that comp. That's a fair comp. I'll take it.
That's awesome. Very, very well done, Toby. I had heard about that show. I caught it like long after the fact. I heard that show, like a bunch of people were talking about it. And I was on a plane one time looking through something to watch on the flight. And I was like, okay, let me check it out. And yeah, I found it very, very, very clever, very funny. Mall Security, thank you very much for the donation. The worst thing to ever happen to the Dolphins, getting stuck in the AFC East instead of being in the AFC South. Better luck against the Titans, Texans, and Jags. Do you know the reason they got stuck in the AFC East? That was by choice, as the story goes, and as reported by Tim Graham of The Athletic. At one point, most of the parties had agreed to put the Dolphins in the AFC South, along with the Titans, Texans, and Jags. and keep the Colts in the AFC East along with the Patriots, Jets, and Bills. And the Dolphins said, no, we want to keep the rivalries with the Northeast teams and keep a presence in the Northeast. We'll pass, leave us in the AFC East. And so they were. And I think competitive. And of course, remember, this was 2002, and this is just as Tom Brady was taking off with his career with the Patriots. So let's just say that decision didn't necessarily work out, competitively speaking. Devin, thank you for the donation, partner. For me, I'm not mad about the loss at all. What did you expect from a rookie quarterback? I treated this game like a preseason game. Honestly, I think we still get blown out today if Tua was a QB1. Well, yeah, the way they play defense, yeah. And I don't think Quinn Ewers was a factor in the win or the loss very much at all. Just like a lot of times I didn't think the Dolphins were winning or losing because of Tua, which was fine, except you don't need to pay $54 million for a quarterback to do that.
There you go. Yeah.
And yeah, I can think of very few reasons, because this notion that we put all the blame on Tua. No, for me, I found like that very seldom was he a major factor in the, like Monday night, they didn't lose because of Tua. He didn't play well, but didn't lose because of him.
Yeah, I think he became increasingly more of a factor as this season went on, is probably what I would say off of somebody watching the tape. I think that he severely limited the areas of the field that you had access to, even more so than it did in 2024 and before that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Birthday salami, 2 years now. Never wanted to be wearing 21 in my life.
That's fair, man. That's fair.
Yeah, of course. The reference is to Jordan Porter. I don't want to look it up real quickly because I saw a very quick thing that he had a monster game today.
An interception. I saw that off a deflection.
Interception and a sack, I believe. I want to say led the team 11 tackles, half a sack, a pick. Nice game. Okay, let me put this away. That's funny though. Number 21. Yeah, it's not.
It's not been kind.
Garb Gump, thank you both for the great analysis. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Happy holidays to all of you. And on that note, I can't think of a better way to close it out. I want to thank everybody who took the time to join us today. Thank you very much for all the donations. Much appreciated. We will be back here on Monday at some point to do the aftermath. And as our good friend Brett here has just said, happy holidays to everyone. Please check out the website. Do you want to give me a nice Christmas present? Check out the website. All content is free. Dante's stories, my stories, our analysis pieces, MiamiDolphinsandSI.com. So that's going to wrap it up. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.